so now it's working. That's weird. Okay, so apparently my original go live stream did not work, and this one is working, which makes absolutely no sense. I'm sure I'm doing something wrong. So apologies for that. If you went to the original stream, you're not going to find it because it says it's still waiting. So instead, you're going to have to go to this stream. So what I'm going to do is go and post the updated link. Let me just find that link real quick. Found it. Find that link real quick. And I'm going to drop that in Twitter for those who care. Doing that now. Okay, bad link. Try this one. All right, so if you're on Twitter and you tried the old link, well, maybe you'll find me on the new link. Again, this is an experiment that is in progress and constantly evolving. So on with the show. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Check-In. I'm Ned Bellavance, Ned1313 on Twitter. And welcome. Today's topic is don't be a snob. If you have questions about the topic, drop them in the comments. I will, monitor them and address them if they come in. And if not, you can always hit me up on Twitter, Ned1313, after the event is over, and I'm happy to continue the conversation there. And feel free to suggest topics for the next daily check-in, which will be on Monday. Otherwise, happy Friday. Let's get going. So my topic today might not be immediately obvious, but it is don't be a snob. And what I mean by that is, if I go back to my roots in my teenage years when I first started really getting into music, and I don't mean like the way that people are into music when you're a little kid. I mean like really getting into music, which seems to happen in the teenage years. That's generally when you discover, oh, I really like metal or hip hop or any of these other genres of music, and you're not just listening to what your parents put on the radio. At that point, I met a group of people who I thought were super cool, and this was right around when grunge hit. And because I thought they were super cool and they listened to this music that other people hadn't heard of, I developed this snobbish and sort of elitist attitude towards music. And that's not a healthy approach when it comes to music, as well as many other things in life. What I thought at the time was the more obscure a band is, the less people that have heard of it, the better that band probably was. And bands who got really popular and well-known and became almost pop music, well, they were sellouts. They were no good. They were over the hill. I liked them back in their first album, or I liked them when their demo came out. And, that's become a bit of a trope, right? The elitist indie music person who's like, I liked that band before they were popular. Have you ever heard their demo? That's some really good stuff. And I think that's died away a little bit, but that's still very prevalent in the music scene. How does that extend to the world of technology and the stuff that, I work with day to day? There are definitely trends within technology. Things become fashionable and really popular. And there's a tendency to think that once a project has become sufficiently popular, it's no longer cool. It's not edgy anymore, and people want to be on the bleeding edge and the newest thing. So, for instance, you have something like Kubernetes. There was a period where Kubernetes was not really well known. It was growing in popularity, right? But it hadn't reached that tipping point, and it hadn't become super popular. And enterprises hadn't started adopting it. Meetups were relatively small. This is before I really started getting into it. I'd heard the name, but I had other things on my plate at the time. And then it grew, right? And I went to KubeCon last year, and there was 12,000 people there. So obviously, this is no longer, if I want to draw the music analogy, it's not the band playing in their friend's basement. And now they're headlining a decent-sized venue. Maybe they're not playing, the Meadowlands or whatever, but they're still, playing a decent-sized venue. So Kubernetes has reached that point. And now you see people trying to look beyond. What's beyond Kubernetes? What's the next thing? And I think what further cemented this was the fact that vSphere 7 came out. And that's probably a whole live stream all on its own to talk about vSphere. I know my buddy Keith Townsend, the CTO advisor, he has been doing a whole series of streams just about vSphere 7. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but a core component of vSphere 7 was the introduction of Kubernetes into the control plane for VMware. That's huge. That legitimizes the whole thing, if nothing, for enterprises, I should say. The industry has already moved to Kubernetes to a certain degree. You have those early adopters and the startups and the forward-looking industries adopting that platform. But what you didn't have was the enterprise. And this is a signal from the king of enterprise technology, VMware, that's, in every nook and cranny saying, we bless this. This is a technology that you can use. Now, if you are the kind of person who's inclined to be elitist about things or a snob, you might look at that and go, well, Kubernetes is dead. That's over. That's not cool anymore. They sold out. They sold out to the man, which is preposterous. I mean, it was preposterous when I said it about music, and it's equally preposterous to say it about technology. Popular and common isn't bad. The way of doing things today is not necessarily bad. It's got us to this point. That's absolutely a valid way to go about things. So when someone rolls in with this brand spanking new technology, enterprises are justifiably uncertain about it. They're skeptical, and I don't blame them, because they're not in it for the newness factor. They're in it for the can I get my business done factor. And if the new shiny thing doesn't do that for them, they're not really interested. I don't blame them. They're kind of like the record labels of the 2000s when they were looking at these indie bands and going, well, if I can't make a few million off of you, it's probably not worth my time. And that's could be a jaded way to look at it for a music perspective, but from a technology perspective, companies are looking at technologies and going, is this actually going to improve what I'm doing today? So popular and common isn't necessarily bad. It's probably good. And what's new and or obscure isn't necessarily good. There's a new programming language out there called Dark, and I haven't had the chance to delve into it too much, but people are already starting to make noise about it. That doesn't necessarily mean it's good, because it's obscure and barely anybody's heard of it. It could just fizzle out, much like many indie bands just fizzle out. So it doesn't make any sense for industries and enterprises to push all their chips into a technology that's completely unproven. So don't be a snob about the technology that you choose to implement. It doesn't make sense to be elitist about it. Find the technology that actually does the thing you need done and adopt that technology, and be aware of the greater picture when it comes to the technology. The other thing that I would say about technology is don't be a gatekeeper when it comes to technology. Don't be that person who pushes other people away from a technology because you want it to yourself. You want to be that elite person. And I've certainly seen this in different realms. I saw it when I started working with storage guys, and I don't know why it was storage guys in particular, but they were very, very protective about their storage and their knowledge about storage. And I'm not saying all storage guys, and obviously there's storage gals out there too, but there was a certain subset, and they were usually guys, who, when you would come up, it would be immediate animosity, total elitism. They didn't want to talk to you about the storage. They just assumed you couldn't understand it. And honestly, for them, I think it was a superiority kind of thing. I want to lord my superior storage knowledge over you. And I won't say storage is the only realm where I found this. I certainly found similar attitudes when it came to networking. You ran into that network person who was just like, lord their knowledge over you. Unix admins. I mean, there's a lot of gatekeeping there. I've heard there's a lot of gatekeeping in InfoSec too. It's not an area that I'm especially experienced in, but I've heard that before. So there's the side of being elitist about the technologies you'll adopt, but there's also the side of being elitist about the technologies you know and being a gatekeeper and not sharing your knowledge and welcoming other people in. And that's sort of like liking this band that not many people have heard of and you don't want to spread the word, whereas the band themselves are like, no, spread the word, dude. Like, we want to be a popular band and make a living off of making music, and you being elitist about it is not helping us. So be a real fan. Don't be like an elitist snob fan. So I would say that's another element of don't be a snob. Another thing that I want to just hammer home here is remember why you got into it in the first place. One of the things that finally pulled me out of this elitist approach to music was remembering that the reason I like music is because I like listening to music. It's not because I know more than you about a particular band or I've heard of this demo that you've never heard of before. That's dumb. The reason I listen to music is because I really like listening to music, and the reason I got into technology is because I really like playing with technology, and I want to share that with other people. So if you find yourself pushing people away, lording that superiority over them, remember, that's dumb. Don't be that person. Remember, you got into technology because technology is cool. And you should want to share that with other people who share that same enjoyment of technology. Otherwise, you're just being a superior snob, and no one really wants to be around that. You may find that you don't have nearly as many friends as you might if you were more open and sharing and bringing people into your community, as opposed to creating a gated community of elitist people and pushing them out. So that's my topic for today. I'm curious to hear what other people think, what you think about this sort of premise that I have put out. I didn't see any comments come up in the live chat. That's cool. Hit me up on Twitter. It's Ned1313. And let me know what you think. Was I right? Was I wrong? Also, if you have topics for next week's live stream, hit me up and let me know. I'd love to hear what your ideas are and things you might want to hear me talk about. Or you could just be like, you talk too much, go away. And that's perfectly acceptable too. Regardless, enjoy your weekend. I hope you get rest, relaxation, and stay healthy. And don't be a snob. Thanks. Have a good one.